No entrepreneur is born knowing how to do a cram down and a restructure and what good looks like.
It was just this constant, really this constant dance in terms of aligning everyone's expectation. And it really started with listening and understanding what does everyone really feel about the current state of the business.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen entrepreneurs spend days trying to polish a press release to convert shitty news into less shitty news.
Welcome to Money Mavericks, the podcast where we explore the dynamic world of finance, investment, and entrepreneurship.
I'm Kirk Drake.
And I'm Daryl Hicks. Together, we're here to bring you the latest insights, expert opinions from the trailblazers who are redefining success in the financial world.
I think there's two things having kind of rode shotgun or watched you kind of go through this. One of which was, I don't think many people think of using a Y Combinator or any of these tech incubator kind of investment funds as a fulcrum to really have a very difficult conversation and kind of push that agenda through in a different way. And so, it doesn't always work, but I think that worked very well for you. I think the second piece that I would just say as an observation is, I felt like you would call up and you would just, you had integrity, you had the tough conversation. I may not have liked the message, right, in that, but you weren't dancing around it. You weren't, you got to it quickly, you ripped off the Band-Aid. And I think there's something to be said where a lot of times, whether you're laying people off or you're having a tough employee conversation or you're having a conversation with an investor, where we tend to try and soften it as much as possible and polish the words. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen entrepreneurs spend days trying to polish a press release to convert shitty news into less shitty news. When the reality is, I think people really respect just not wasting their time, right? And just saying, hey, look, situation is where it is. This is what we got to do. Like, you can either get on board and we're going to move forward or not, and I'll work with you as much as I can, but there's not, I don't have, this infinite, pool of things and levers to pull. Right. And I think you just did a great job with that.
Yeah, I tried my best. And I know that Kirk, you and I had some tough conversations. The thing I appreciate about our relationship, and again, the relationship I have with a lot of people is you may not get it right the first time, but you figure it out. You kind of figure out what that right balance is. And then we move on. You don't hold a grudge. I don't hold a grudge. We're in it to win it. Right. And I really appreciate that about the people around me. Not everybody's like that, but again, this is luck. I'm just surrounded by really, really great people, right? That have their own objectives, and everybody wants to do the best. But the conflict sometimes runs into what's best for them versus what's best for me. And there's always a balance you need to hit between stakeholders. And this is more about emotional intelligence than anything else, right? And really kind of understanding where the middle is in what everybody's going to be satisfied with versus the alternative, which is really kind of no one wins.
Yeah. Emotional intelligence is a topic that Kirk and I have discussed very, very deeply, very robust conversations around the importance of this super important trait for founders to work on and to develop, because I think that it gets through a lot of really difficult issues. If you know how to really be empathetic and engage well with people, whether you want to call it charisma or integrity, or there's a lot of different qualities that kind of fall in under emotional intelligence, but definitely a key takeaway. Because the thing is, people are born with a certain baseline of EQ, but everybody can improve their EQ with a little bit of, practice. And now in this day and age, it's easier than ever to find the resources to help to increase that. But super, super, super important quality for successful founders to develop and have. So at the end of the day, Y Combinator comes in and says the only way that this business makes sense based on all the information that we've had and the history of success that we've seen with businesses is the founders have to own a really significant piece. But you've raised all this capital, you've sold significant amounts of the business to other people. What's that conversation like? How does that even actually work? I'd love to kind of just pull back the kimono on that a little bit.
I mean, many conversations over a 2-month period, I would say between October and December, it was just this constant, really this constant dance in terms of aligning everyone's expectation. And it really started with listening and understanding what does everyone really feel about the current state of the business and the opportunity to actually revive it by, seizing an opportunity like YC, but having to kind of execute a restructuring. So that was the conversation I had to have with like everybody, and really did my best, not perfectly, to kind of like really understand everybody's position on that. And then really kind of determine a way, like, again, this financial engineering and like, just like figuring out how to align everybody's incentives and execute it legally, so that we could actually capitalize the business in the future through an institutional investor. And the thing that YC really supported us on, other than being that anchor, is they did full diligence on the business to ensure that like when we raised like our next round right after YC, institutionals looked at it, and it was clean. It was clean as it could be in order to get past sort of any hump that we were facing in 2023 before the restructuring. So it was really kind of like, in summary, just like understanding, what everybody was in it for and what they wanted, and really did my best to kind of execute that with legal counsel. And our legal counsel really supported us during that hard time too. And, shout out to Mark there, who really kind of helped engineer that and see that through. I don't know everything, but I had a lot of support in executing that.
You beat me to the question that I was gonna ask is, where's the support group to come in and tell you? And so you've got this great legal team that comes in and supports you. I have an amazing legal team on my side too. I would not be in the position that I'm in my business if it wasn't for the incredibly savvy lawyers that I have working with me, that advised me and guided me. Like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but I'm assuming it was the legal team too that said, or was it YC that said, look, an ideal structure could look like this. If you can get the investors to cram down and instead of owning this much, own this much, and then, clean up the cap table and re-up the employees and stuff like that. Where did the numbers come from and the structure, the advice on that? Was it YC? Was it the lawyers? Was it conversations you were having internally? Was it going to ChatGPT and getting advice there? Like what were the inputs into the decision making?
Yeah, it was really YC that drove the minimum requirements, because I mean, like if you think about Y Combinator, like they've seen so many companies raise capital at this stage, like the earliest stage, that they kind of know what's going to work and wasn't work. And I got to give a shout out to Tom Blomfield, founder of Monzo Bank Group, partner at YC. He's the one who really spent so much time with us between October and December to really kind of like guide us in terms of like how to execute this stuff. He didn't know everything as well because I was so in the weeds, but he sort of like anchored us to the minimum state we needed to be at in order to ultimately be successful. And he continues to be like a gift that keeps on giving today. But he anchored it, and I just had to kind of like just ensure that everybody, all the other stakeholders, understood kind of like, this is what it's going to take to be successful. And, YC's seen a lot, right? So that's kind of like, the anchor. And then everybody else, again, as I said, just needed to understand kind of like if they really wanted to go down the path of shutting down the business. And by the way, I was simultaneously exploring dissolving the business. So like, that was the least fun part of my day, because that's when I had to face like the fear and like all the pain and like, I don't want to fail feeling as a founder that, many founders feel throughout like this incredibly difficult journey. But I was simultaneously preparing to shut down the business at the same time.
Yeah, I will say, having gone down the road of that preparation in at least one business along the way, I don't know that you ever actually have to go through it, but the path of having to explore those simultaneously and like report back to the board was probably one of the single best exercises that shifted how I approach business on the front end, seeing how you have to take it apart on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
On Money Mavericks, we don't just talk about making money. We explore the innovative strategies and bold decisions that drive real change. Whether you're an experienced investor, a budding entrepreneur, or just someone looking to make smarter financial choices, we've got something for you.
Every week, we're going to sit down with industry leaders, visionaries, and mavericks who share their journeys, challenges, and breakthroughs, from contrarian views on market trends to the secrets behind building a successful startup. You get an inside look at what it takes to thrive in today's economy.
And we promise to keep it real, engaging, and most importantly, actionable. No jargon, no fluff. Just straightforward conversations that you can apply to your own financial journey.
So get ready to challenge your thinking, expand your knowledge, and take control of your financial future. This is Money Mavericks.
where we turn financial dreams into realities and mavericks into legends.
I kept hearing, like, I'm a big fan of the All In podcast. Love those guys. And it was easy for them to say that, okay, the ZERP era is over, valuations are crashing. And there was this enthusiasm that you would hear sometime about, think about all the people, the capital, the intellectual capital that's going to be returned back into the ecosystem. All these like zombie businesses that are just they're not gonna be able to raise another round, and so they're just gonna get collapsed down. It's gonna free all those people up to come into new businesses. This is going to be so wonderful. And I was really skeptical of that when I heard them, because as a founder and having a really deep network of founders and talking with a lot of founders, what you're talking about, Saroop, like, our identity to a certain extent is attached in this. There's a tremendous amount of shame that comes along with whether it's warranted or not. Okay. Like, this is not like, how many times, like, I have one of my very dear friends, my first co-founder in my first tech business, committed suicide with a heroin overdose, accidentally on purpose is kind of our assumption, because of the shame that he felt over failure in business. Like, this stuff, unfortunately, can run extremely deep. It is not easy for human beings, a founder who's like done so much to get everyone hyped up. They get themselves hyped up, and they've been selling this to the employees, and they've been selling it to investors, and they've raised capital, and they've hired people, and it's their livelihood. And all these people chose to go work with you and support your dream. And you feel all this responsibility for them and for their families and for their children and for your investors and your own reputation. And it's easy to think like, how am I going to be able to ever start another business ever again if I fold this business up? And these guys were just being so, almost cavalier and trivial. I think that they underestimated founders and how many, yes, of course, there have been some businesses that have folded, and rightfully so. And some, it's a real shame that it was a great business and it didn't need to be folded up, but there just was no real path forward. But by and large, what I've seen more than anything else is that founders have found religion around how to get lean real fast, how to pivot, how to push themselves through, how to become whatever they need to become in order to keep the business going. And you could argue that some of the businesses should have been folded, and maybe they shouldn't have done that. But one thing that a lot of people didn't take into consideration, to the extent they should, I think, is how hard it is for human beings. No human being wants to feel like they're moving backwards. It doesn't matter what area of their life is. Every human being wants to feel like tomorrow is going to be better than it is today. Today is better than it was yesterday. Directionally, my life is moving up and to the right. This is what we all want, right? So it's really tough. And I mean, kudos to you. I mean, that's why that's fun to have this conversation, to kind of unpack, like, who did you need to become? What did you need to do in order to find a way to push this forward? And no entrepreneur is born knowing how to do a cram down and a restructure and what good looks like, right? That's why I'm really glad that you talked about the legal team and YC, right? They say to you, okay, look, we've got tons of experience. We've seen this before. This is a structure that could work. Now, it's still up to you to go execute on that, right? The idea may be actually simple once someone explains it to you. The execution, though, not so simple, not so easy, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, that's where, there's a lot of details. I mean, they're just like, it's, at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of people, right? And it's just a bunch of people that, if you can kind of like have the right conversations in the right way and align them all, at the end of the day, you can reach a successful end state if you're persistent enough and you push enough, right? And there's YC, there's my legal counsel, there's my shareholders, there's my board, there's the debt holders, there's my team, there's like so many stakeholders, Chris and Kirk, there's so many stakeholders involved. And at the end of the day, like, they're just people. They're people that want to be successful. And, this is where luck came to my way. All of those people ended up, actually coming together in a way where we said, Senso should stay alive and we're going to support it. And I just got to give credit to all those people, because as much as like I can say that I'm the hero in this area, I'm just like someone who just stuck with it, because I refuse to accept the alternative of
Just to
shutting
be
down the
clear,
business and failing.
I never said you were here.
That's where the conversation started. So just to clear, I'm not taking that credit.
I'm just saying,
I think-
I respect what you did, but there's a difference.
Yeah, I think there's something so important to unpack in here, because you keep saying luck, Saroop, and I absolutely agree with you that there's always a degree of luck. But what my experience has taught me is that there's this whole thing of like birds of a feather flocking together, right? If you are a high integrity founder, and if you are fortunate enough to communicate that with the emotional intelligence, and you're able to attract like-minded people, then that takes care of a lot of things. Like, that's the lead domino that, to me, because how many nightmare stories have you heard and have I heard about founders who got it wrong with the wrong investor, with the wrong board, even that had a phenomenal business, but then the founder gets forced out of the business and somebody new's brought in, and next thing you know, the business has gone to like an 80% write down. These stories exist all over the place. I would, to the extent that I do advising to startups on raising capital, I stole this from my dear friend Dan Martell, but I focus on the 3 C's. Capital, I guess, is the 4th C, but that's obvious if you're raising money that you're going to get capital. The 3 C's are connections, credibility, and conversations. Connections is what are the commercial relationships that you have, but also where you have influence over those commercial relationships to open up doors for me. Credibility, what kind of a message is it going to send to the market when I get backed by you, right? This is where YC comes in, right? They've got a really great brand. There's a lot of credibility that comes from that. Makes the conversation with your stakeholders easier when you say YC recommends that we do this, right? There's some credibility that comes with that. But the most important to me is the conversations. And what conversations represents to me is the culture fit. Am I going to enjoy working with these people? Do I like these people? Do we have a similar thesis on the right way to go about building a business? Do they understand the problem that we're tackling, and are they supportive of it? Do they have a thesis around the problem, right? If you get that piece right, to me, that is the single most important piece. That is the lead domino. If you're able to get the right people into the business, and sometimes it is luck, but there's a way to actually make it less about luck and more about process. When you say, okay, I am intentionally going to look for people that I think are high integrity people that we see eye to eye on the right way to build the business. And that doesn't mean that as the founder, you're just looking to surround yourself with a bunch of yes men. Like, I want to have people that get in and challenge me and ask me hard questions and push me and prod me. But at the end of the day, we're going to work together from a place of integrity and experience and knowledge and being good people with one another. And it sounds like that was a big piece of your story as well, as the quality of the people that you had around you as stakeholders, right?
100%. Yeah. Starting with my team, and going back to kind of what you were saying before about your previous co-founder, I didn't always have it easy in terms of like finding like great co-founders. Like I've had bad experiences like every other entrepreneur has in the past, and like my first attempts at entrepreneurship, right? Now, like I think those learnings, those hard stories of the past allowed me to select the right co-founder, and instinct goes a long way. Select the right board members, and look, my board members like spent every single week with me. Kareem, Kalish, Chris, and Adrian. Every week they were on a call with me, helping my mindset and go through it. And that it was because like when I actually raised my first round back in 2018, like 2020ish, I really kind of bet on the people and who they were. Do they have empathy to understand what a founder is going through, or are they just, finance people that don't have that operational expertise? So that was important to me when I raised my initial round.
Do you have a co-founder criteria at this point, like a short list of things that are must have or must not have?
My decision-making framework is, do I just enjoy working with these people? And over time, life, like you kind of gain like an instinct over whether this person in tough times is really kind of going to have your back or not. And I care more about that than like how smart you are and like, et cetera, et cetera. Like, do I want to work with these people for the next decade? Are we going to win together? Right. Because when push comes to shove in bad times, that's when true colors come out. And like, I've just seen that certain people just get really, really, really nasty in past lives before Senso. And I just told myself, I just don't want that in my life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that I've noticed that, for example, there are some people, I'm rereading Chris Voss's amazing book on Never Split the Difference. And he talks about the 3 different negotiating styles and how human beings fall into this trap that we just automatically assume that everyone is exactly like us. But when you get people that are very, very different styles that come together, unless they really deeply understand what people are really saying when they say this, and understand their motivations and their response to things, it can create a lot of friction and a lot of things. And so that's not to say that people that are different from you in their approach or their philosophy, or people that are different from me and their philosophy and their approach, are necessarily bad. It just means that we're a bad fit. Knowing yourself and who you are and what you're, and again, you want to always constantly be challenging yourself. Like, I love this adage of like strong positions loosely held. Like, I am absolutely convinced that this is the path forward and the right way to build a business, until I'm presented with some really compelling data to the contrary, and then watch me change my mind on a dime, right? But there are, like, I've seen people with a very different philosophy from mine that have been very successful in building their businesses, but that's great. They're going to follow that philosophy, and they're going to attract a whole bunch of people around it to go through that. So I think it's really important for the listeners to this podcast to say that we're not here casting aspersions and judgment on people and saying there's bad people out there that if you let them into your business, it's bad for you. Understand who you are and what's the right way that you want to build a business, and make sure that you attract those people in, and then create a culture of transparency so that you can all kind of work together. And it sounds like accidentally or accidentally on purpose. Like, I love that old quote from like Chris Sacca, I may be lucky, but it wasn't an accident. I think that, knowing who you are and having EQ and all that kind of stuff, and being able to attract the right people around you that is a massively important lead domino. You get that right, everything else becomes easy or irrelevant.
Totally. There's this saying that's, all like, it's said quite often around Silicon Valley, where I am right now, the prepared mind, right? And you only get a prepared mind after, like, especially the painful moments, right? Like years of learning, just ripen up your instinct to kind of like find, who's right for you, as you said.
Yeah, it's cool. So now you got this new product, you got the new team, you got the restructure, got a few credit unions live on this new, AI solution that's helping them create efficiencies inside of the credit union. What's next for Saroop and for the business? What's the next big milestone that you're pushing towards?
Yeah, like I'm just super excited at the moment of time we're in. Like, we're in the early innings of the greatest platform shift that's like we're ever going to see. Undoubtedly, if AI finally works and there's demand for it, I think businesses are realizing that they're getting a return on their investment, and they will continue to get return on their investment at the application layer, right? And we are at the application level layer, focused on a given industry. We've had the opportunity to, for about a year right now, work with like a growing network of credit unions and really understand, yes, okay, the first kind of offering that we had has grown into something that is unique. We have a team that's able to deliver on it, and I'm very thankful to have the team that I have in place, my co-founder Tom and the rest of my team. We're a small team, but what's funny about non-ZERP coming is that we also got like this huge like efficiency gain through AI, right? Both are happening at the same time. So really kind of like just continuing to work with our customers and really understand at the edge of what the value that can be produced through LLMs and generative models, et cetera. I'm living my dream, and I'm in Silicon Valley. We're growing a team in Toronto, and really kind of credit unions is an amazing starting point for us, because the industry's collaborative. The network that CU2's built and has brought our way are the early adopters of the industry that love to kind of like, develop in a shared way, where we're developing the technology, but they're kind of constantly like providing feedback along the way. That's an entrepreneur's dream, right? And, the value is real. So I think that in summary, right time, right place, right people, right moment in time, early innings. And I feel like we've struck gold, and we're in the right place to do it. So I'm super excited about the future, and really love building what we're building. And that's kind of why you become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it really is. And I echo your sentiments on Kirk and Odie and the team that work with them. They've got the whole birds of a feather flocking together and finding integrity people that have a similar vision and all that kind of stuff. I'm very happy for you and for me that we have Kirk and his people in our lives. It's great. Lots of love going your way, Kirk.
I'll take it.
Love it.
I'm going to have a bad day, and I'll need both of you guys.
There you go. Yeah, this has been an awesome conversation, Saroop. Really appreciate you carving out some time from your day. Founders have always got an overflowing plate, but to kind of share your experience and some of your wisdom with the world around this, it's an incredible journey. Congratulations to you for being successful in this really difficult transition, coming out the other side of 2023, and we're excited to see some great things from you and the team.
Awesome. And thanks again for giving me a forum to share my story. I hope this helps any other entrepreneur going through painful moments at this point in time. I know there's a lot of you out there, but hang in there and, reach out if you need to have a conversation.
Yeah, super generous of you. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Money Mavericks. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And be sure to share this episode with someone who needs to hear it.
Stay connected with us on social media and visit our website for exclusive resources, episode transcripts, and more.
Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries, making smart moves, and turning your financial dreams into realities.
You've been listening to Money Mavericks, where Mavericks become legends.